Hey everybody, welcome to the Reveal Report. Coming up, we talk about gateways and portals to hell. Where are they? Do they exist? What is everyone on social media talking about? I'll be joined by Nathaniel Gillis momentarily. Going to be a great show, so stay tuned. Hold on. It's coming up. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Reveal Report. I'm your host, George, as we dive into a very interesting topic, a topic that's getting really popular on social media. I love to follow what people are seeing and talking about on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and a particular topic is portals to hell, gateways, other dimensions to get to hell. So I started diving into this, and I found it very interesting. We're going to get into that with my special guest momentarily. First, let's do a little bit of cleaning, spring cleaning, as to say, what's going on with the Reveal Report? Well, we were boycotted by PayPal. They didn't allow us to accept any more donations. It was a big disaster. We're blocked. I started something on Cash App, and now Cash App has attacked me and not allowing me to accept your funds. It used to go directly, and now it's stopping. So, Lisa D, Dolly, Vincent, thank you for your attempts. If you said anything, you'll have to decline it. Take it back. They won't let me have it. And interesting enough, we used to average 10 to 20,000 views per video. Now we're down to about 5,000, 6,000. What's going on with the algorithm? Are they blocking me? Are they stopping me? Are we hitting the truth? Or are people just not interested in the occult topics anymore? Either way, there's too many variables that looks like we're under some type of attack. So pray for us, guys. Cash App not working, PayPal not working. What am I going to do? I'm going to continue on and move forward. And we still have Patreon, and you could join us on Patreon after the show as we do a Q&A with Nathaniel. Nonetheless, I thank you for those that are watching, supporting, and showing love. Thank you so much. Without further ado, please welcome my guest, Nathaniel Gillis. Nate, how are you, my friend?
Doing good, brother. Thank you for having me on. It's always good to be on with you. And it's a rather interesting subject we're going to be into tonight. So it's going to be fascinating. Portal
to hell. Is there one? Are there many? I'm going to begin with a video. Of course, this is what we're talking about, the videos that have gone viral, and it kind of sets up the topic of what we're discussing. So the first video is an interesting one, and it's a familiar topic with many. So I'll play the video first, and then we'll have you dissect it and give me your comments. So without further ado, turn up your volume, take a look at the first video. Here it is.
What's about CERN?
So the Large Hadron Particle Collider in Switzerland is this large circle where they're basically trying to create antimatter. They're trying to harness the God particle. There's a huge statue of Shiva the Destroyer outside of the center, and there have been some incredibly dark things witnessed at this space. There have been some people that have caught footage of them doing something that at a minimum looks like a reenactment of a human sacrifice. I don't know why you would do such a thing. Like, this all took place right in front of the Shiva the Destroyer statue. issue. There have been many people that have come forward that basically said when this particle collider is turned on, it actually tears the fibers of our space-time, and it's created kind of these parallel fractures in our timeline. There are also people that really believe that what they're trying to do is create a portal to unleash the demons, the spirits of the Nephilim, to basically let them come out of the gates of hell. They're using technology, something that we would perceive physically, to actually allow a portal for something multidimensional. That's all on the road to something that we won't be able to come back from if we're not careful.
Videos are going viral. CERN, we've discussed this sometimes ad nauseum about our theories and what they're possibly doing. But I gotta throw you the microphone, give you a chance to talk about it. What are your thoughts when it comes to CERN?
Well, I think they're employing exactly what our federal government is doing and other governments all across this world, and that is occult science.
Mm-hmm.
If you're familiar with Dr. Astrid Stuckelberger's work, she said, and again, we have to trust her word on this, obviously, but she said she's in contact with the person that works at CERN, and that they were indeed tearing the fabric of space-time. And this individual she was in contact with said that they watched as an entity crawled out of the quote portal and took a handkerchief or a scarf off of a chair,
Wow.
and then he replaced it with a scarf from that dimension. Now, this tearing of the space and time fabric is not something novel. It's not new. This is what Jack Parsons was trying to do in his rituals. And what we're learning, at least Steve Merritt, my colleague, and I, is that the more and more we interview people all across the world who are familiar with this subject matter, everyone that we're talking to consistently is telling us that their governments are hopping on the bandwagon of occult science. And the particular model that they're indulging in it's not science or the occult, right? It's literally science that's inspired by it.
Yes.
And this goes all the way back to a particular model of the phenomenon that originated in biblical antiquity, which was idolatry. When the idolater would take a piece of metal that was most likely gifted by the phenomenon, carve the name of an unclean spirit on it, a ru'ah, ra'ah, or ra'ah, ru'ah, and then place it in the mouth of a corpse. And then you have this occult science that originated as necromancy. And we still don't understand how that's happening. But it was documented, and it was documented more often than just that. My point being is that there is a model of the phenomenon that we have to get our minds around, and it's not nuts and bolts
Mm-hmm.
or spirituality, right? It's not science or religion. Whatever we're dealing with seems to be combining both of them in an effort to open up a portal for other entities to incarnate. Now, what this implies, though, is that there is something out there that wants to, and that if we operate the ritual perfectly, not us, of
Mm-hmm.
course, because we're not occultists, but if you had someone who could do that, you could actually invite by invocation entities that do not belong in this dimension. And even right now, there is a movement within the occult. Many of them have been meeting at Joshua Tree. And their idea, and this is absolutely incredible, is that because it was Jack Parsons that opened up a portal by virtue of incantation, that because he was an occultist, that it should only be occultists that even entertain these beings. And so they're having conferences at that location. And actually, one individual called it the New Babylon working. So whatever we're dealing with, and people, again, we're not really, a lot of us aren't prepared for this model, even within Christendom, because it's so binary. And I've been hearing researchers lately who confuse this. They'll say things like, well, why do spirits need nuts and bolts craft? The implication is that everything that we are seeing is actual tangible, real nuts and bolts craft, and that's just simply not the case. And stop me if you want to, brother, because you know
Yeah,
me,
keep,
man. I'm
yeah.
used to lecturing for hours, pal. So what we're looking at now, my colleagues and I, is a model that the Collins elite discovered, where occultists were projecting their consciousness into other environments, and that consciousness had the ability to create physiological constructs that were perceived by witnesses in that environment as UAPs.
Hmm.
So at first they looked like balls of light, and then they even evolved in their pathology. This is so fascinating, by the way. They
Hmm.
evolved to where the consciousness that's being projected into a construct was actually being measured by scientific instruments. So what we're looking at now is Franz Barton's vaulting mechanism. We're looking at remote viewing. We're
Yeah.
looking at Joe McMoneagle, and at least I am, in this act of projecting consciousness, and that consciousness being witnessed in another location. And so what we're looking at now is, because it's scientifically measured by an instrument does not mean it's nuts and bolts anymore, because the phenomenon can make it appear as such, to where it's just enough to be measured. But then when we go to investigate it, it's not there. It's not on thermal imaging. It's not on night vision. It's only on radar. And so it manipulates our perception of it. It manipulates our instruments. And a lot of what I believe is happening is, again, that our government is classifying a version of occult consciousness.
Hmm.
And that is what I believe a lot of these UAPs are. In fact, there was an experiment ran here at Wright Pat Air Force Base, about 10 minutes from me, where a group of these occultists were using what's called a psionic assist. Some people would call it a God element. What they
Hmm.
were doing is they created some kind of scientific method, if you will, a device that they put on their head. And you guys are going to see this in the movie Disclosure Day. And they would project their consciousness outward. And again, people in that location, and that location they decided to project into, would perceive it as a structured UAP, when really it was an occult science. And so the entire model we're watching in real time. Again, it's not binary, right? And so that's what CERN's trying to do as well, is opening up a portal, not just uh, with particle alignment, but literal consciousness as well. And so that's a model people need to pay attention to. And instead of saying, okay, it's this or that, either or, it's both.
It's both. I love you mentioned that. I want to give a moment or two to
Yeah,
something you said to bring it together. You talked about
yeah,
occult science, very important. It's
yeah,
merging. We've heard the past 100 years or so. People in government are merging. They're doing exercises. They're doing projects
yeah,
and research in
mhm,
regards to occult and implementing in different
yeah,
aspects of government. That's just fact. It's been reported. So
yeah,
for a moment, let's touch on this guy right here, because this guy, what you said,
yeah.
Jack Parsons, who was in NASA, created the
JPL.
yep, and was involved in magic, sex magic
Mhm.
specifically. He was a part of that. There's many writings about him, and he looked up to Aleister Crowley. Maybe let's touch on him for a moment, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so he was trying to bring about, with L. Ron Hubbard, his scriber, they both were trying to bring about an elemental, right? The divine feminine. And in the middle of one of their rituals, which was successfully fulfilled, by the way, they were elated. They reached heights of just awareness, and I guess, and people call it, raising of consciousness. But at the end of the day, he was a self-taught rocket scientist. This blew my mind too, because a lot of these people think, okay, this guy was, Harvard educated. He wasn't.
Yeah, yeah,
He was getting his insights from entities
yes.
that, in John Keel's mind, would, to create a Trojan horse. But essentially, what they were trying to do is to incarnate the divine feminine, and out of nowhere, Marjorie Cameron shows up at the parsonage. Ding dong. here I am. And you have this redheaded woman, and she's like, I don't even know why I'm here. I just felt drawn. And I've heard about what's going on. I would like to join you. Well, Parsons told Hubbard that it appears, right, that our ritual to conjure the divine feminine is now here. It's Marjorie Cameron. And so all three of them were kind of, they were buddies. My point is this, and this is so incredibly fascinating to me because it shows us the origin of a lot of the phenomenon. Is that one day Marjorie Cameron had a UFO sighting of her own. And she went back to the parsonage and told Jack Parsons to his face, your rituals must have been successful because I witnessed an anomaly that followed me in the sky. Now, that is not a one-off. John Dee and Edward Kelly saw the same kind of manifestation at the end of their rituals. Okay, even the Skull experiment in Skull, England, during seances, they had a ball of light that was kind of like a disc, and you could see it was shooting beams of light onto the table. So what we're realizing is that a lot of these manifestations, even up to orbs, are the end result of ritual and ceremonial magic.
There it is.
So much so, I'm getting passionate now, guys. So much so that while we're doing our research here and people are frowning on the Collins elite because they're too fundamentalist, on the other side, we have Peter Levenda writing a book, Secret Machines, with Tom DeLonge and another author. And in the middle, I think it was the second book it was, I believe, where they're talking about gods and men, where they're talking about this idea they have of ceremonial magicians in another dimension, which I just got done talking about the College Elite work, right? Projecting their consciousness into this dimension, and we are perceiving it, right? And they go into this idea of, well, we get into Kabbalistic magic where they're uploading themselves into a craft, a ball of light. So my point is, that research is the most coveted data right now in the entire field.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, Nick Redfern wrote his book, Final Events, and then he went to write his sequel. And he had, I think it was almost 12 different publishers say absolutely not. We're not publishing it. So it's what's so funny to me, though, is when you're looking at it from a macro perspective, you see that the Collins Elite research is the most frowned upon because we're all simpletons. We don't know what we're talking about. But let somebody else repackage that research as a secularist, as a practitioner, and then everything's fine. We'll promote yet conferences. So the point is, if you really want to know where the data is, it's the stuff they don't want us to talk about. It's the data, the actionable data that they want to be able to reframe, restructure into a narrative that's palatable. But I'm just so fascinated by it. But I think that's really where we are, is that the incantation is designed for incarnation.
Again, occult science. This is what they're referring to.
Yes.
So,
go ahead.
No. I just want to make reference to one thing because it's key on how these people work. Occult science, but they're still using things that have occultic nature. Again, just to throw back to CERN, this was a statue that was set up. This is Shiva. Who is Shiva? She is a principal deity in Hinduism. She is known as the god of destruction and transformation. Now, if you're in science, why would you want this near something you're building that's so dangerous? Moreover, they decided to do a mock sacrifice ritual caught on tape, which then they came and said it was a joke, they were having fun. In what world are professional scientists using billions of dollars of taxpayers' money and privately funded Fortune 500 companies putting on black robes with fire and lights in the middle of the night, creating some type of a mock ritual sacrifice to Shiva.
Yeah.
I'm perplexed by this. What's your comments?
Well, it's not new. It's just what they've always been doing. And now that we have social media and camera phones, it's coming out. My mind goes back to Dr. Diana Walsh-Pasuka's interview, where someone asked her, like, what's going on with NASA? Because I believe they were covering JPL and Jack Parsons.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, well, she went to one of the rocket launches, or she was told about a rocket launch where they took the leader of the free world, Barack Obama, placed him in a certain location, and told him to look in a certain direction the very moment they launched a rocket into space. And Diana Pasuka, who's a scholar of religion, asked the right question. Why are you performing a ritual, and who are you performing it to? Number one, we have to please our sponsors. Who are your sponsors? That's the question that was never really answered. And it wasn't just that, but here's what's so profound to me is that if you're going to take Barack Obama, who at the time was the leader of the free world, the most powerful country that's ever lived, right? And now go stand in that corner and look that direction. And don't even ask us what we're doing. That implies that there is a system that transcends the system. That we have the leader of the free world, but we don't really appeal to him when we want to go higher. We appeal to somebody else. And that's who they believe has the ultimate power. So much so, it's almost like a ritual of humiliation. Appreciate it, Mr. President. Go have a seat. I would suggest even more than that he would play an active role in the ritual, even not even understanding what's going on. You stand here, we're going to operate, we're going to perform this ceremony. Why? And the question was asked, why would you do that? They said, so that we would have a successful launch. So people need to understand this. Within our federal government, there are people that are in the know.
Interesting.
There are people that are not. There are people, again, and I want to say this too, because this is a very actionable data point, that when they write sigils on the rockets, they're not just picking up Joe Schmo from the grocery store who has a casual interest, right? Or a bookkeeper, or somebody that's big into Scooby-Doo, or I'm not playing, I'm not trying to be silly here. What I'm trying to tell you is that not every ceremonial magician is successful.
Correct.
So what that means is, if they're going to trust sigilization on the rocket, if they're going to trust a ceremony with the success of their rocket launch, they're going to be in contact with an adept, hands down.
Yep.
Someone who has a proven track record of successful contact with
Warlocks.
the phenomenon.
Warlocks.
Right. Someone who would walk by you in the streets.
Yeah.
You will not know who they are. They could be a doctor. They could be dare I say it? A deacon? Just joking.
Yeah.
We don't know, my friend.
We don't know. Yeah.
My point, though, is when I heard that, because Steve and I covered this on NHI discussions one year, I'm like, there's no way. My point is, though, yes, that they are very, very well aware of the nature of the phenomenon, and they're conjuring. And so what fascinates me about all of this is that it's okay to talk about it if you're a practitioner. But anybody else, you're canceled, no conferences, no lectures, you shut down. And that itself is designed, this is going to be a bomb. You guys ready? To please their sponsors as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, nothing changes. It's always the same, no matter what year, where you're from. Yeah. I mean, even if you go back to who you referred to earlier, who did the scrying?
Alvin Hubbard.
No, before him, Enochian magic.
D and Edward.
Yes, D. But I mean, his sponsor was the Queen.
Of course.
Had to please her. And they all have sponsors going back. Fact, I want to keep the ball rolling in regards to this occultic nature. And again, staying on portals to hell, possible locations. One I found interesting is this place right here. Huska's Castle, the gateway
Yeah.
to hell. It's in the Czech Republic. It's a 13th century fortress, widely renowned in the folklore as a gateway to hell.
Yeah.
Now, this place here, it's gone viral. Many people are creating videos. They're talking about it. I love it. I like them talking about it. I want to play one that's gone viral. We'll get your take and add a little bit more context to it. So here's our second video. Turn up your volume. Check this out.
They've built this castle. There's no water running to the castle. There's no rooms in it. There's not a kitchen in it. There's no fortifications. In fact, when you look in it, it seems to be built to lock what's inside from getting out instead of from what's outside getting in. And it's believed that there was a portal to hell that was discovered, and that when it was discovered, they even lowered a prisoner down there in the midst of the construction. It was reported that he would get a full pardon if he was willing to be lowered down into that pit that they discovered. When they did, they brought him back up. He was screaming and yelling. He had aged considerably and died a few days later, according to some reports. And so they built this castle to keep that portal, to keep it in. And it's fascinating. People travel there all over the world to visit it. And some say, well, it was just a castle that was built to house documents. And why were the Nazis there doing all kinds of research during World War II? The Nazis went there.
The Nazis went there to this specific castle. Interesting how it's built. Let's take a look right here. As you can see, this is an overview. There's nothing in the middle, because in the middle is a deep well, some type of a hole that goes deep. And prisoners, like he said, were lowered. They came back out aged, years and years and years, white hair, their skin, they were aged, and they died days later. This is what happened. Some say in folklore, this location was used occultically before the Germans found it. There were ritual magic being conducted here. Ancient traditions, maybe with the Druids, who knows? But things happened in this location. Again, the castle was built surrounding this hole. So it's square. In the middle, it's completely empty because there's this massive hole, this well of some sort that goes deep, 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 deep. Perplexing. All right, let's get your comments and thoughts on this castle.
So I'm not surprised that there is lore surrounding rituals being performed underneath it, I should say.
Correct.
Because I think that people need to get accustomed to rituals not just being performed on land, but inside the earth, in caverns, underground in the earth. Now, this is so fascinating too. When Steve Mayer and I interviewed Ronnie Vernay not too long ago, and it's this almost the same case study here, exactly almost like it's fascinating, where he said that that the reason that the Virginia entities were manifesting is because there was an occultist that kind of financed the city in Virginia, Brazil. I'm getting to a point here, so everybody follow me on this. It's not my ADHD rambling, I promise. And so what this individual did was he owned a mansion there pretty much, and he was an occultist, and he was known. He actually dug down into the earth and created almost like a laboratory to perform his rituals. And Ronnie connects this to the fact that early on, before American ufologists got there to investigate, that these people, the witnesses to the Virginia case, said that what happened was that there was a cloud of mist that came out of the earth near the area where Zay Gomez was built. He built into there, literally out of the earth from the area that he had performed the rituals himself. And then they manifested. Now, another factoid that's worth talking about is that entrance there, right? It looks like a well or a portal or something, that witnesses say this. They remember watching entities fly out of it.
Jeez.
So what we're looking at is flesh and blood, or at least appear to be, creatures, just like CERN, where by virtue of occult science and ceremonial magic, they incarnated in this dimension. And so it's virtually side by side. Both cases are nearly identical But that looks, I mean, out of all of the castles I've ever seen in my life, that looks like it was designed to conjure.
Correct. And again, look at that's built. This is what takes it all away. The hole is in the middle. There's nothing to cover it. They didn't put a cover over it because this was not built to have people come in. It's built to keep people out.
Yes, and it's built for other inhabitants.
Correct. So, possible portal to hell, maybe gateway.
Yeah.
Let's keep it going. There's another location. This one, though, this one, Nathaniel, could be the one. This could be the one that the world is not focusing on just yet. Some are. I'm going to drop it right now. I'm going to share a picture of what I believe is one of the most powerful, if not powerful, locations on this planet. Here we go. Do you know where that is? That's
Absolutely.
Mount Hermon.
Yeah.
Mount Hermon. Many things happen in Mount Hermon. Videos have gone viral. People are talking about it. They get it. They understand it. So they put it on their socials, and now it's starting to catch. So let's talk about it. I'm going to play a quick clip, and then we'll get into it. This is the next video, Mount Hermon. Here we go.
Now, this is the same area directly below Mount Hermon, and for years following, for generations following, this area continued to be the central location for demonic pagan ritual worship. They would build temples and altars to their false gods, and it all centers around that top red circle there. You'll notice at the top it says the Grotto of Pan. Pan was a demonic pagan god that they worshipped, and they worshipped him because they believed he came out of the underworld, and that underworld was from a cave that was in the rock at the base of Mount Hermon. Now, this is what it looks like today, and you can go and visit this. I guess at some point in history, there was a massive earthquake that changed the shape or the structure of this cave, but it was known to be the abyss. There was no depth to it. They could not measure it. It was just bottomless. You can go visit this area and see how much is left of these temples, of these shrines that were built around this entrance to the underworld, around these gates.
Right at the base of Mount Hermon. I'm going to share a picture. We'll get you to comment on it. This is what it looks like. The mouth to the gates of hell. There's a lot to unpack here, but here it is. Take a look. There it is. There's the mouth. Open to the public, by the way. It's open to the public to see. I'll bring it in a little bit more. At the right hand here, at the bottom of the screen, there is also areas where they did ritual sacrifice. I have a picture of the actual, what we believe to be an altar. Take a look. That is an altar that they used to make human sacrifices, animal sacrifices. God knows what else they did there. Right here on this side of the mountain, you see holes cut in. And this is where I believe they would place different idols for idol worship. Again, there was Pan, there were others that they would worship. Right at the foot of it, there was a huge altar to make sacrifices. It's all still there. There's the mouth. In fact, they had chains that they found in this, and it was writings that were put into these chains that were almost like a spell capturing. It was like a capturing spell, a holding spell. That were on these chains that they found. Lots to unpack here, Nathaniel. I'll let you take it away. What are your thoughts thus far?
Well, I do believe there were rituals performed in there, specifically by the Canaanites. They believed that particular location was a portal to death in the underworld. And so a lot of their deities existed there. Here's a key data point regarding caverns in areas just like this. Is that there are entities that exist there, and they have their own protective mechanisms. For instance, my colleague Steve Marin, Barry Fitzgerald have been in locations just like this, where they were carrying iron. Now, for those who've not followed my work lately, what we're realizing is that these entities hate iron because there's a particular frequency that they operate on. I'm not saying New Age frequency, by the way, a scientific frequency that they use, they operate on, and it helps them manifest. And a lot of times when they interface with us, it helps them keep that shape. So what we're doing now, not to side quest here, but I'll get back to this in a second. What we're doing now is we're working with abductees and experiencers and recommending that they carry iron, okay? The problem is that when you actually carry iron into these locations, they will manifest to you without any problem. In other words, that there is some kind of protecting or protective mechanism that they have within those corridors of caverns where the iron no longer is effective. That's point one. Point two, that Barry and Steve in what's called the Phenomena Project, I believe it was Phenomena Project 2, they were in a cavern just like that, because a lot of these entities, again, they're space demons, where they like to hide in caverns just like that, where they realized that they had, first of all, they had a new device that they were using that was measuring time differentials, right? So in other words, if I had an automatic watch on my hand, right, and then I had my cell phone, they would measure if there was a 3 or 4 minute difference in time. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And when they went into the cavern, there was a scientifically documented time differential where time operated differently once they got inside to where these creatures are. And so that's what all this is about. Now, this is not an accident. It's not an accident that Mount Hermon exists. It's a high place. And I want to suggest this too, where, I grew up in obviously church and everything. So I always heard this was purely picked out because it was a geographical location. And that is true. But what I'm trying to suggest here is that these beings understand frequencies.
Yes.
They understand science. They understand electromagnetic signatures. And so as much as there is some kind of spiritual aspect to them, there is a learning mechanism that they're evolving with, I should say, to where the closer we get to them, right, the more we enter into their domain and our scientific instruments go haywire, EMF meters go crazy, time differentials exist, where time is experienced differently in their locations than it is in anywhere else. And so now what we're trying to do, and this is why it's so significant and this research is valuable, is look at these locations, what they have to do with ley lines,
yes,
and electromagnetic frequencies, because again, if we can map that out, then we see the paranormal architecture that they have always existed in. And it's very valuable research.
Yeah. All right. Again, I want to just say, if there was any place on earth that could be the most powerful, spiritual, and occultic, it's this place, Mount Hermon. Take a good look here, folks. This is the location where the angels came down and took the daughters of men, mated with them, created the Nephilim giants, taught man the art of war and how to use steel, taught them root work, magic, taught them everything they needed, all these secrets. This is the place where at the edge of it, Jesus showed up. This is the place, I believe this was also a location where biblically, when they sent the spies to go and find a space, this was the space that they came back and said to Moses, no, we can't go there. There's giants. And that's why they didn't make it into the promised land, because of this location. This is a gateway to hell. So they say this is where they actually worshiped idols. Pan. This is where they had altars for sacrifice. I'm not making this up. This is documented, so you can follow up. But there is conspiracy about Mount Hermon. And I'm going to show you something and then play another video and get your take. Mount Hermon, here it is. See if you recognize this logo. What does that mean? I'm going to play a quick video. A guy did a great video on this, and I want to get your take on what you think in regards to this video. So I'm going to play it, take a listen, and then we'll get your take. Here it is.
Okay.
What's up, brothers and sisters? I hope everyone knows this logo. Did you know that there was a hidden meaning behind this logo? So let's break it down. We have fallen angels fallen from heaven, hovering over the waters, just like the Spirit did. And what are they doing? They're congregating around a mountain. Now, where do we get that from? And how many stars are right there? The book of Enoch speaks about 22 angels fallen from heaven, congregating on a mountain called Mount Hermon. Right here, by name. Now, when Lucifer originally fell, he took 1/3 of his angels. What is 1/3? 3.33. Why is that number so significant? Now, why is 33 so significant? Well, when the angels fell, they landed on the only geological place on Earth that represents their number, 33.33 north and 33.3 degrees east, using the Paris Prime Meridian. So let's bring this all together. Paramount Logos has a mountain with 22 stars around it. The Book of Enoch has 22 stars mentioned by name that congregate around a mountain, and the mountain is literally the only geological place on Earth that represents their number.
Interesting theory and conspiracy. Paramount is referring to Mount Hermon and the fallen angels, a place where they so-called believe knowledge was brought in, but a place where evil emanated from. Thoughts, Nathaniel?
I'm going to look into that. It's very interesting. I haven't seen that yet. I would hate for that to be the case, honestly, but I would not be surprised if it was.
Yeah.
The problem is, these individuals in Hollywood, they put stuff in everything. And even some of the cartoons I grew up on, I'm looking back now, I'm 37 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking back at it and thinking, what have I missed?
Yeah.
What have I missed? So I would absolutely not be surprised if that is the case. I'll have to look into that.
There you go. It was 200, but 22 were the leaders that were congregating around this mountain. Unbelievable gateways, portals, dimensions to hell. Everyone's talking about it. I figure we'll dabble and touch on it and theorize and get everyone's take. Interesting, you referred to occultic science. It's very important people realize this. We'll have to do another show talking about this because it's so important. I got to tell you, it's fascinating, and we discuss it. My experience in the occult, of course, is we look for locations when I was a practitioner where you could conduct ritual magic that has power, whether it be on ley lines and a location that has power will make the magic stronger. That being said, also bringing in what we call tools or trigger objects. Amulets, things that belong, stone, whatever it may be. Some people use skulls, so forth. There's a lot that goes into it. At the edge of Mount Hermon, there were rituals where they bowed to idols. Also, they made ritual sacrifices. Yes, blood sacrifices to emphasize the power of these rituals. This is unbelievable things, and they actually exist. That's just documented history. I got to ask you this. You're a demonologist. You participated in a lot of different explorations and research. Now you're going into ufology, and you're getting into a whole different type of research, which is phenomenal. But in your experience, have you ever come across something where they discussed a portal, gateway, or a ley line that was so powerful that maybe helped, or let me not say helped, but added to a possession or paranormal activity?
To your point, and this is germane, and people need to write this down. Just like the phenomenon will not be manifested just to anybody, it will also actually lead people into locations where it will like to manifest. So the location has to be right. The sacrifice has to be accurate. The offering is not just chosen by the practitioner, because if the phenomenon doesn't like it, it will not incarnate, it will not manifest. So you have to have the right person, you have to have the right offering and the right amulets, all that. Then you have to have the right location. And for all of that to happen, and you employ all of that, you do ceremony or ritual. Yeah, the idea though is that you can perform ceremonies and rituals to the point where that location becomes a portal when it was not a portal before. Case in point, I had an abduction case about a year ago where a family was abducted at a gas station. Okay, they went back and looked at the gas station. They couldn't figure it out. Why would we went through a really bad experience? Why was it at a gas station? It wasn't until the gas station was tore down that they really got the address and looked into it and realized that that was a location where people performed rituals. So regardless of what's built onto the property, there is an energy that is conjured, that exists in that environment, that the phenomenon remembers, and it will go to it as if it is a portal because it's made contact there. So with that said, the most documented experience I know of where it wasn't just a ley line, right? It wasn't just ritual or seances being performed. It was literally where the phenomenon manifested NHI into the hundreds. This was the Skull experiment in Skull, England, where they were performing seances. They had parapsychologists in a room. They're all packed into this room at nighttime. The lights are off. And they went through a series of initiations. Okay, you have your guides. And then once they got through the guides, they went into deceased loved ones. And then they went into deceased scientists who were trying to assist them in their experiment. And then finally, they landed into the hands of a spirit team. And again, they're going higher and higher and higher and higher, not realizing that what the phenomenon is doing is using each and every archetype to establish a portal, a connection between their dimension and ours. And finally, the spirit team said, there's someone here that wants to talk to you and wants to communicate. And that's when entities began to manifest in the seance.
Man.
And I thought it was just one. Now, for those who want a frame of reference, look up the Skull experiment. It was not debunked, by the way. What happened was they were told by NHI, place the camera on a tripod, put it in a room, come back tomorrow. And they did. And they looked at the film, and there is an alien gray. The color is blue because, again, you're looking at through a camera. But he's staring into the lens of the camera, guys. He was not a one-off. When the NHI began to manifest, they manifested by the hundreds. Okay? It got so bad and so, I guess you should say, demonic in that room that the only thing they knew to do is to turn the lights on, sever any and all psychic connections with these things, in hope that they did not become mortal portals for the phenomenon to manifest. And so, and this is something else that we need to also entertain, is that people can become mortal portals for this stuff. They are manipulating consciousness. They are, in many cases, using consciousness to manifest. And so there is this co-creation, and I believe that's why worship has to be done in their presence. There is this exchanging of energy and belief to where people become the anchors. People become that mortal portal to where the person leaves. Parsons will leave, right? He'll die, but the phenomenon state is so much so, guys, that the United States government pulled him aside one day and they said, okay, Jack, come here. We got to talk now. Is it possible that beyond the ritual, that you tore fabric in the space-time? In that somewhere in that tearing, entities that were given authority by obedience and belief now have the authority to come into this dimension. Is that possible? And they say, yeah, it is. It's kind of probable, actually. So more, and here's my position, more than just the altars, more than just the locations, this stuff can be attached to people and lead them into areas where it can manifest, where people that had no intentions of going out into the desert. Diana Walsh Pasuka with Tim Taylor. Where are we going? We're going out to not Waffle House, guys, right? Not Applebee's and not Hot Topic. We're going to go out to the desert. Why? Because that's where the phenomenon is.
Yeah.
We're being lied to.
We're being lied to, 100%. Guys, gateways and portals to hell. Are there more than 2 or 3? Well, there's ley lines all over the world. There are powerful locations. Like Nathaniel said, you can almost manifest a portal anywhere with the right circumstance. That's the moral to this, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you all for joining me. We have an after show, a Q&A with Nathaniel coming up next on my Patreon. So tune in, click the link underneath. I want to thank you all for watching. Nathaniel, how can people follow and support your work?
Yeah. So you can follow me on Instagram, Nathaniel Gillis. You can follow my YouTube channel, which I am currently revamping, Nathaniel Gillis. And if you want to support my work, you can subscribe to my platform, Parasymposia, where I put out 2 videos a week covering my research. And that's where I'm at. Thank you for having me on. I know it was a quick session and we could have went way deep on many subjects, pal. We always can.
We always can.
Thank you. Thank you, buddy, for having me on.
Love having you on. Guys, again, I just want to say thank you so much for those that have been supporting on PayPal, and it was cut, and now Cash App cut. Lisa D, Dolly, Vincent, if you send something, you'll have to go back with tracked, cancel. If you send anything, please cancel. They won't allow me to have any donations whatsoever on any platform. If you still want to continue to support what I do and keep the show on Monday, send me an email, send me a DM, and we'll figure something out. Your help goes such a long way, and I thank you for helping keeping this show still on air. Lisa D, Vincent, Dolly, thank you so much. I do appreciate it. And Nathaniel, I did put your link in the description below that you can click on for more. We love having you here. It was a great month, and we'll see you again very soon. But coming up next, the after show right here on the Reveal Report, a Q&A with Nathaniel and myself. We thank you all for watching. God bless. Good night, everyone.